This episode of Bullet Heaven was made possible by Hucast. In episode 109 of Bullet Heaven HD, we took a look at Hucast Games' Redux Dark Matters for the Sega Dreamcast. After its successful Kickstarter, Redux saw release to Sega's little white box that still does in January 2014, but with a severe case of crippling blurry. As you can see here, it was pretty intense. But let's put on some Steam brand HD glasses and... presto. On December 12, 2014, Redux Dark Matters was released to Steam in its ultimate form, an incredibly well-optimized version of the game that shows Redux Dark Matters off in all the ways we had all always hoped, in full freaking HD. But how does it compare to the Dreamcast version? Let's take a quick look. Redux Dark Matters pays homage to games such as IREM's R-Type and SNK's Last Resort, particularly with the indestructible bit that's attached to the front of your ship. While this bit cannot be launched above the screen, players instead have access to a bullet-eating field, which will suck in enemy shots as a mode of defense. In addition, enemies in the field will be locked onto and homing shots can be fired to take them out, even behind your craft. A small pink gauge in the bottom left-hand corner indicates how long this ability lasts, and can be refilled with additional bullets on the fly. Multiple weapon types and missiles can be collected as well, and all can be leveled up accordingly. Extra drops will turn into stars for bonus score. Beyond this, missiles can be toggled between firing forward and vertically for additional offensive and defensive technique. Furthermore, the main shot can be charged for a super shot that cuts through enemies and heavily damages larger foes and bosses. Now, just like the Dreamcast version, the controls in Redux Dark Matters are very sharp and allows for some great screen navigation, even amidst the most bullet-crowded stages. The heightened resolution to this version of Redux also allows for an even better sense of where your ship's small hitbox is, with zero guesswork required when it comes to squeezing through small spaces between bullets. The controls here, as with the original, are fully customizable to any controller you might be using, though the PC has many more options at the player's disposal. I used both the SLS Saturn USB pad and the Hori Genpad EX360 controllers, and they auto-detected and auto-mapped fairly well by default, but players can really tweak the controls to their liking, especially with some pads' 6-button layouts. As such, the bullet-eating mechanic, homing shots, and missile toggles work just as good, if not better, than the Dreamcast original. Of course, all of the weapons, shields, missile configurations, and upgrades for all of them are present here as well. It's all 100% there. All 7 stages from the Dreamcast Redux make a return, with both the original and veteran game modes in tow. If the normal game mode is a bit too easy, and a 1cc is totally possible here with minimal practice on normal. The veteran mode will surely satisfy anyone's masochistic tendencies. Getting good at veteran also enhances the replay value as well. Beyond the super solid controls and extra lines of resolution, one huge aspect of the gameplay in the Steam version is the widescreen 16:9 aspect ratio, which actually makes Redux on Steam even more playable than the Dreamcast version, thanks to the extra width to the game screen. The widescreen nature of Redux on Steam gives players quite a bit more room to move and more reaction time to some of the trickier enemies and shot placements. Once again, the game flow is pretty solid with a large amount of enemy types with just as many fire patterns and attacks to contend with, so the whole game keeps you on your toes. But, just like the previous release as well, all of the bosses feel pretty samey, though some fire patterns can be kinda tricky. There are a couple of notable omissions from the Steam re-release though. Most notably, there are no Steam achievements, but there has been mention of a possible update in the future. There are also no online leaderboards, which is fairly puzzling, but again, nothing stops you from jamming that print screen button and submitting a high score to sites such as highscore.com. In Redux Dark Matters, the scoring is mostly summed up by collecting nuggets left behind by felled enemies. It's always been a pretty simple procedure in all of the Duke's games in the series from 1.0 all the way up through this very release. Of course, getting through unscathed, collecting as many nuggets and stars as possible, absorbing a ton of enemy bullets, and generally blasting the crap out of everything you see will get your score up there nice and quick, and result in quite a few extends in addition to the ones you'll find all over the stages. Again, there's no online leaderboard, but as with any Steam release, it could just be a quick update away. Alright, so here we go. This is the real meat and potatoes to this new Redux release. The presentation here is about as awesome as it comes. You want insane detail on everything on the screen? Yeah, here you go. With up to 1080p resolution running on a super well optimized 2D engine with fantastic pre-rendered sprites, the level of visual polish borders on the insane. The Dreamcast had you squinting to see where your hitbox was, but the Steam release has you squinting from the sheer majesty of it all. As with the Dreamcast version, the Andre Newman OST featuring Chris Hulsbeck is back in full force. I've always held this soundtrack as one of the better ones we've heard in the last few years, and it's every bit as good now as it was back in January of 2014. Likewise, the sound effects are also 100% identical to the original release, and we felt that they worked extremely well back in the original review. The presentation enhancements here are basically what makes this very release the ultimate version, especially from an audio-visual point of view. With a stunning coat of visual paint and polish and the same fun, refined gameplay that got us hooked on Dukes to begin with, the Steam version is a super solid package. But how does it stack up? Let's take a look. Okay, right, let's fix up the old score here. And there we go, much better. Super refined from the Dreamcast version thanks to the razor-sharp visuals, the controls in Redux on Steam are superb. The normal game here is actually pretty tame, but the veteran mode will have you wondering just how you defeat this juggernaut. With 7 stages and separate difficulties, Redux Dark Matters has a lot of gameplay to play through and master. Now about those visuals, this version of Redux is drop dead gorgeous. Fantastic art direction and details make Redux on Steam shine brilliantly. Equally brilliant is the OST from Andre Newman and Chris Hulsbeck. Just like the original, there's a lot of inspiration sources here, and the lack of achievements and online leaderboards hurts this particular version, but only just a little. A simple update could fix all of that. As such, the ingenuity is more or less the same. If you missed out on the Dreamcast before the original release, or you don't have a Dreamcast to begin with, this is your chance to play the definitive version of Redux Dark Matters in all of its absolute splendor. Redux Dark Matters Steam Edition gets a 4.75 out of 5. You can get Redux Dark Matters on Steam today for about $14. At such a low price compared to the Dreamcast version, even if you were only mildly interested in Redux before, this should be your very next Steam purchase.